First off, my name is Maury Litwack. I'm a yeshiva parent, and I'm here to make my voice heard. Are you here to make your voice heard? Are you here to make your voice heard? We're going to change the program up a little bit, and we're going to have on the stage two great people, one of our leaders, and the other one of the most powerful, important politicians in the state of New York, Senator John Flanagan, a big friend of our community. So I want to introduce both of those people here, but I want to just, what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple questions, a little Q&A, and then we're going to open it up to our students. So I want students to already start thinking about which questions they want to ask as a prelude, if you will, to the important lobbying meetings you're going to be doing this afternoon as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce first on the Teach NYS Executive Committee, Cal Nathan. Cal? Have a seat. And I also want to bring out Senator John Flanagan, the Senate Majority Leader. Oh, he needs a standing ovation. He said he needs a standing ovation. So I want to start with Cal, specifically because years ago, 4 years ago, we started on these missions to Albany, and we only had 8, 10, 12 people here. And Cal was one of the first people to come with us on those missions to Albany. And so I wanted to ask Cal, I said, Cal's had a relationship with the Senate Majority Leader for some time. I want to start with Cal and give Cal, our students, our volunteers, our leaders are here today. They're here to meet with politicians. They're here to make their voices heard. And give us a little background in terms of your relationship with the Senate Majority Leader and how that began.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Maury. I started coming to Albany about 5 years ago. We were a small group of people. We had this crazy idea that we could hopefully change the face of non-public school education in the state. And we started with a few dreamers who had an idea that we could come up here and start to talk to some of the legislators and the senators and the governor about helping to equal the playing field and bring equality to education in the state. One of the first great people that we met was Senator Flanagan. Senator Flanagan was at the time the chair of the Education Committee. Education was something that was near and dear to his heart. And we met with him, and immediately he was very receptive, and he became a big champion for our cause in trying to help us further along this idea that we could get additional funding for our students, for all of you, for my children as well, to help fund some of the educational subjects that the state was legislating and mandating at the time, such as English, science, technology, and math. And throughout the years, Senator Flanagan has become a true friend of ours. We've met with him many, many times, and he continues to be a champion for our cause and really for all non-public school students and all students across the entire great state of New York.
Thank you, Cal. Leader Flanagan, once upon a time, you told us you need to bring more students here. You can't just bring 6, 8, 10 students because it cuts through barriers, quote, and builds bridges, and you find allies, and they hear from you, and they hear your concerns, and they hear from the community. I think you can attest. We brought people here.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about specifically for this crowd and for yourself and as a leader in the state of New York, why you believe it's so important to invest in non-public school education and specifically this historic STEM legislation that we heard about from Senator Young?
Well, first of all, thank you to Maury, and I want to take a moment to extol the virtues of my colleague seated to my left. Mr. Nathan, I think the most important thing that I would speak about with regard to Cal is that he's a parent. I'm going to repeat that. He's a parent, which means he's always tired, but most of the day happy. Because when you are being a parent, particularly to our students, I always tell people who are about to have children, being a parent is the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, and that's why it's the greatest thing you'll ever do in your life. So Cal has been a staunch advocate in a variety of different ways in the community at large, but in his own schools. He has welcomed me and my colleagues into his personal home. have always been gracious, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. And we need people like Cal, we need people like all the folks in the audience, and Maury and Jake Adler. I want to thank the Orthodox Union, but I have to tell you, I have a great time meeting with the adults and with the parents. And I like them a lot, but I don't like them nearly as much as the students. So what we do, you know, in Albany, one of the challenges that we have is when you have teachers or parents or grandparents or coaches, a lot of people tell you, hold on, you have to listen. You actually have to listen. How many, all you students know that. So here for us in Albany, if I'm going to work with your colleagues and properly represent you, the smartest thing and the first thing we need to do is listen. So when you talk about STEM, you talk about appropriate education, when you talk about school security, when you talk about transportation, when you talk about access and opportunity and equality and the maintenance and the growing of a faith-based education, that's my job. That's my job along with my colleagues. I am extraordinarily proud to work with you. I support all the things that you're trying to do, and I know it's not easy. Now, to our students in particular, the cool thing is that you get a day off. You're not actually in school today. That's the hard part, is you probably had to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get up here to come and visit with us. So I want to impart to you the work that gets done really is important. Your advocacy, and I'm particularly talking to the young boys and girls that are here today, your personal advocacy makes a difference. It really does make a difference. And when you come and you visit, you make me feel better, you make me stronger, and you make me more resolved working with my colleagues to ensure that your trip is productive in the short term and in the long term.
Leader Flanagan, there are students here, I believe, from 8th grade, correct? We have 8th graders here? I believe we have 10th graders here also. We have some 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, yeah? Is it important for these students to be engaged from a civic engagement? Is that important for them at this age to do? I mean, many of them can't vote yet. Many of them may be worried they're going to go see their elected officials, your colleagues today, and not sure are they ready? What would you say to them in terms of civic engagement in 7th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade for our kids?
Well, let me make an analogy to a degree. Certainly, as I said before, when your advocates come up and your parents come up, that really does count. Because I know how hard it is to come up here, take time off, and do your advocacy. But I also think for our students in particular, this is a really important component of your personal growth and your own education. Now, you're right. Maury's right. You're not eligible to vote right now. But I'm going to give you a long-term homework assignment. Relax. It's not that hard, okay? But for those of you who are in 8th grade or even in 10th grade, when you turn 18, you will be given one of the greatest privileges that you can possibly imagine. You're going to have the right to vote. Your involvement makes all the difference in the world. Now, I can also tell you, it might be useful for you, all of you, to go home and talk to your mom and dad about voting. Ask them if they vote. Make sure that they do vote. And to me, that's not only a right, but it's a responsibility. So your personal involvement is very important. Now, I'm going to give you an example. We try and do things about recycling and not littering and not throwing trash anywhere on the streets. If I were to go up to another adult and say, "What are you doing? Why are you throwing that stuff on the street? It should be in the garbage can. You're littering. You should be recycling." That may work. I guarantee you, you as young men and women and young boys and girls, if you go up to an adult and say, "Why are you doing that? Don't you want to take care of our environment?" They're going to listen to you. They'll listen to me second, but they're going to listen to you first because, as the saying is, out of the mouths of babes. So you start now. You know who your member of the assembly is. You know who your state senator is. You are, no kidding, you are our next generation of leaders. So I want to see, yeah, that's for real. That's for real, and I'll give you one last comment on this. I was in 5th grade, and my father ran for the New York State Assembly. Now, you just had a member of the Assembly precede me in terms of conversation. So I grew up in a house filled with government, and I had a different understanding because, my dad was involved. But there's never a time that's too soon for all of you to be active. And when you come up, and I said, quite clearly, I love seeing all of you here because you not only are, you're invigorating. It's great to hear what you have to say and what you think about. So I could go on, but I'm going to stop right there.
I'm going to ask 2 quick questions, and then we're going to open it up to the students. So I'm not sure who on staff is going to have the Dory's going to deal with that. So just have your questions ready, because I'm going to have 2 really quick questions, quick response, I hope, as well. Cal, could you give us one piece of advice on how you developed a relationship with the majority leader and what that means for our students and volunteers and leaders today?
Sure. I think as the leader just said, that politics is all about engagement. And the folks in Albany up here, as the leader said, everybody got to get up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a long ride up. It's a longer ride home. It takes effort. So if you put the effort in, the legislators and the senators and the governor, everybody are happy to receive you and see you. But if you're not here and you're not engaged, then they're not going to know that you exist. So the one piece of advice I give you is, as the leader said, is start your civic engagement early. Come up here. There'll be no legislator. There'll be no senator. There'll be no government official that will refuse to see you. Won't be happy to see you. Won't be happy to listen to you. So I encourage you to start early, to be an advocate, because if we're not here and we're not advocating, then they don't know that we're around.
Thank you. Leader Flanagan, I want you to know that our entire community feels great hakar tov, which in Hebrew means a great appreciation and great appreciation for what you've done for us and leadership for us in our community. We'll continue to say thank you. We'll continue to bring people here on snow days or not snow days because of how much we care and how much we appreciate the state investing in our kids. What's one piece of advice you'd give to our group to conclude in terms of getting additional support from New York State and making sure that this is not a flash in the pan, and that when these students are voting and when they're bringing their kids and grandchildren here to Albany, that the state has made a serious investment in our kids?
I think of a couple of different things, and at the age that many of you are, probably your first opportunity to be involved in government is internally. I'm sure you have governmental groups within your own schools. You probably have a student council or something like that where people actually run for office. So that is fundamentally important. I wanted to make a point. Your personal touch, now many of you are growing up in a time where if you don't have a cell phone, you feel like you're not a human being in some respects. But I believe very strongly that your continued advocacy, if you write to me or Cal says, Senator Flanagan, what are you going to do about this? I'm supposed to respond. But in the unlikely event that I don't or my colleagues don't, go back. Keep that personal touch. Now let's just take grandparents. It's nice of you to talk with your grandmother or grandfather on the phone. I know this well enough. Nothing beats seeing you in person. When you make that personal touch, it makes all the difference in the world. Let me add one other thing and why this is important. Particularly to our students again, there are some people who work here, not me, and certainly not my colleagues in the Senate Republican Conference. They don't want to give you any help. They don't think you need any help. That's for real. So you have a mentality among some people that, no, they're fine. And frankly, we don't need to give them any help because they made a choice to be involved in a faith-based education. To which I respond, that's a bunch of baloney. That is not. We have an obligation, and I'll close on this point. My children are 29, 27, and 24. Ashley, Sean, and Jake. I don't even know you personally, but here's what I want for you. I want the same opportunities that my children have had for every one of you, and frankly, for that matter, for every child across the great state of New York. If we have equality of opportunity, you all will thrive, you will prosper, and I'll go back, that you will grow into being our next generation of leaders.
Thank you. With that, we're going to take a couple questions from the students. I know we've had time. Who wants to ask us a question? Or I'm going to call on someone. Who we got? Anybody want to ask a question? In the back. All the way, Dory, all the way up there.
There you go. How many schools has this actually impacted? They said before that they're getting money for schools, but how much funding have you actually provided to give to schools?
See what I mean? You guys know what you're talking about. That's a good question. So let me, I'm going to give you a two-part answer. Since 2011 or 2012, we have provided an additional approximately and somewhat more $500 million to non-public schools. Now, part of the reason, and frankly, to our adults in the room, some of that was money that was just owed to you. But we jump-started it and made sure that it happened. So we've invested in money, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Things like STEM education. Because right now, even though you're in 8th grade or maybe higher, we want to cultivate you into science, technology, engineering, and math, because there are a lot of good-paying jobs that are waiting for young people like yourself because they're out there. So that's STEM. Then we have public safety and security to make sure that you, when you go to school, can feel safe and comfortable, and equally as important, that your parents don't have to worry as much, because they're always going to worry. So we have added a significant amount of funding, and we have also, in some details, your schools have come to us and said, not only are we grateful for the money that you've given us, but we need special help here. We need money to go to a particular program, so we've tried to do that as well. And I go back to what I said before, that that's a function of our willingness to work with you, and equally as important, to make sure that we're listening. Because you may tell me something about your own school where you have some particular need. You know, whether it's music or art or after-school education. So all those things are very important that we have to pay attention to. And by the way, we've given money. That money has grown. But the way we can show our commitment to you is by making the money continue to grow.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Anybody else? Oh, there's a question from a student. Dory, up there. Right there's a student right here to the right. And just tell us your name and the school you're with.
And where you are? Where?
So I'm Mayan, and I'm from SAR. And the question I had was that you've given a number so far for like how much in total the government has given to non-public schools, but like how much would that mean for our school? Like for each school, like about how much money does that come out to?
Well, it's actually a good question, but to a degree, it's a little challenging to answer, because some of the funding that we give you has a direct correlation to how many of you are in school. So if you have a school, say, with 50 students, you'll get a certain amount of money. If you have a school with 400 students, the likelihood is that you're going to get more money. So I know this is kind of boring in a way, but it actually really does matter. The state of New York says to your schools, because you are teaching children, we're going to tell you that there are certain things that you have to do. And your schools try and do that. And they meet their obligations under the law. So as a reflection of that, we will provide money to that particular school based on a certain formula. We have something called CAP, which relates to attendance. So if you're a school that, and this is not applicable to your schools because you guys go to school, but if you're a school that has very poor attendance, you're not going to get certain amounts of money. But if you go to school, as you children do, the state of New York will provide funding. So if I think we could drill down and figure out exactly what your school may get, but it's dependent upon a variety of different things.
We're gonna take one more question. Let's see anyone in the audience. There's a
Right there, blue sweatshirt.
blue sweatshirt right over there. And just again, tell us which school you're with and your name.
Hi, my name is David Masry. I'm with SHAR. Is this money for the STEM, like classes, or is it for the teachers and other programs in the school? Is it only for like technology, science, math? Is it only for those specific subjects, or is it for other subjects?
Well, I guess what I would describe is, if you backtrack a little bit, your advocates, including your parents, have come and said, we have a need here. So you balance that by what happens locally. In my opinion, the smartest thing we can do, is provide funding. Say, here's a block of money. You all know what needs to be done. You guys figure out how exactly that should be administered. Now, let me go back to the point about STEM. In every community, public, non-public, we have significant problems with drug use in particular and alcohol abuse. So we have, certain communities may come to us and say, you know, things are tough over there, but they're really tough where we are. Can you help us get some additional money to make sure that we can address this problem? Now, I look at STEM as more of a recognition and more of an opportunity, because we want to have, well, quite candidly, we have a lower number of women going into engineering. So we're trying to help promote more active engagement and more active involvement with women, and really, in this case, girls, with creating a career path and an orientation. And it's not just related to engineering, but like, again, science, technology, engineering, and math, because we have opportunities. And as I said, there are companies out there who are looking, even though you're young, they're looking, saying, we have to get these kids in. We have to get these boys and girls engaged. And there's a lot of other occupations and professions, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a social worker, a physical therapist, all those things are valuable. We need people who can fix cars. We need people who can be plumbers and people who work in the trades. But for us, I think what we try and do is drive the money in such a way that your schools can help fund programs that gear students in a good, positive direction. Now, on that note, you all expect me to work while I'm here. So I have to go back and work on the very issues that we're talking about, including budgetary issues. To our parents, thank you. Thank you for your perseverance. And to you as students, I am delighted to see you here. I hope you have a great day. Thanks again.
Make your voice heard for Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan. Thank you.